Greetings and welcome to the Jamaica Diaspora Show. My name is Mark Millward, and today my special guest is Commander Denise McCallacreary, who is the president of the National Naval Officers Association and also the president of the Jamaican American Association of Northern California. Welcome to the Jamaica Diaspora Show, Denise.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you are Jamaican.
Absolutely. 100% to the core.
Tell us about growing up in Kingston and where you attended your schooling there.
Well, I grew up in the Ligonier area.
Mm-hmm.
I usually tell people on Old Oak Road between Jamaica College and an area called the Matilda's Corner area. My last home was in the back of the Sangster's bookstore. The home shared that property with Sangster's bookstore. I went to Alvernia Prep, aka Nunspen, aka St. Francis Primary School in the Crossroads area. From there I went to Merle Grove High School on Constant Spring Road. And then I left Merle Grove in 1969 and came to the United States. Growing up in Kingston from a pretty big family, to give them credit, I'm from the Levine and the McCalla, the Levine being my mother and McCalla being my father. They're both from the Boys Content, St. Catherine area. It's I say a place that only the people from there know it. It's about 8 miles from Old Harbor. And my grandmother lived there for 100 years, and I spent all my summers with my grandparents in Boys Content. So I'm pretty known in the district from birth to when I left. Came here in 1960, spent the summers in Boys Content my entire life in Kingston, and then came to the United States, migrated to Evanston, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago.
So when you made your migration, did you enter school? What was your age range?
Oh, well, I was actually 15 and a half, and a pretty sad story, which as you get older, memory fades, but I remember that clearly. I was in fifth form, getting ready to take my GCs, the entrance you do after spending years in high school. And when I came here, I went to Evanston Township High School. It was a huge high school. And there really weren't a lot of Jamaican children that had been in high school in Jamaica in the school. So when I got there, if you can visualize, I'm 15 and a half. I'm in fifth form, if you're familiar with the British school system. And they placed me as a freshman. I was tested. I tested for a lot of honors classes, and I'll never forget, my freshman honors English book was Alice in Wonderland. We read that like 3 years old in Jamaica. So I spent from October to December like upset every day, crying. I'd go home to my mother and I'd say, please go up to the school, I've been misplaced. The difference though is I had friends, most of my classmates migrated to this area, New York and Connecticut, and they had Jamaican teachers in the school system. And so therefore they were able to get help for placement. There was nobody in Evanston to help. So I stuck it out till December, and when December came around I had to pick new courses, and I went into the counselor and he wanted me to take all these courses, and I said, no, I'm not doing Spanish. I did it for 4 years. I'm not doing geography. I did it for 5 years. And we kept, and he goes, you can't, you're only 15 and a half. I said, well, I started school at 10 and a half. I've been in high school. Didn't you see my transcript? And it turned out they didn't see my transcript. So I was moved up to the junior year, and I did a year and a half. And I did a senior year because, the American school system, you have to take a Constitution exam in order to graduate. And so I came in 69, went from October to 69 as a freshman, then moved up January through June to the junior year, and then I did 1 year of senior, which was great because I got to do typing, which in Jamaica I was in the science, the art stream. We were divided, the A stream, the B stream, and B stream you didn't do typing, the C stream did commercials. So I got to do typing, which was a great asset later on, and I got to participate in dance. I love dancing, and I wasn't able to afford dance lessons in Jamaica, so I was able to audition after being self-taught, and so I was in their troupe. So I did a lot of stuff that extra year, which was great.
I want to go back to Jamaica.
All right.
And your schooling, and you migrated when you were 15. So now, what was your? I mean, you retired commander from the United States Navy. I'm trying to see where you were
The correlation.
at that age,
Right.
as a child growing up in Kingston.
Right.
What were your aspirations at the time? What was
Well,
your...
it definitely was not to migrate to the United States of America,
Mhm.
and it definitely was not to join the military.
Mhm.
You know, back in that time in Jamaica, most of the people migrated went to England.
Mhm.
So I grew up for years thinking
Mhm.
if I was going to migrate anywhere, it would be England. Plus, we
Mhm.
did a lot of British history. We seldom
Mhm.
did anything America. So I really didn't know much about U.S. history or even migrating to America. But my aunt Pearl came to
Mhm.
Evanston and then sponsored my mother to
Mhm.
the Chicago area. And
Okay.
that's how we ended up in the United States. So in Jamaica, I was a Girl Guide and I was a brownie, but I
Mhm.
still wasn't thinking military.
Mhm.
My aspirations.
What were you thinking?
I was just thinking first you just had to get through high school because you
Mhm.
know high school is a huge thing in Jamaica. It's like you have to graduate
Mhm.
and then you have to get these general certificate examinations and then the plan would eventually probably to go to the University of West Indies.
Mhm.
But you know I was 15 and a half when I came, but started high school at 10 and a half. So for those 5 years, all I was trying to do is just get through high school. Because high school in Jamaica is it can be rough because, you know, they do that placement. You know, if you're in a form of 20 kids, you're placed from 1 through 20 or 1 through 28. So you had to work at being in the first 3 or the first 5.
Well, did you find that the school system, when you came to America and you said you started in the freshman year, 9th grade, did you find that difficult?
No. It
You
was
did
like
not.
a piece of cake.
So
Yeah.
so you felt that you should have been placed higher?
Oh, I was placed higher. Yes, because
So it's-
we start earlier in Jamaica in the
Right,
British
yeah, I
system.
understand. Mhm.
But yes, because I'd done a lot of the coursework. When I came, I was very fluent in Spanish. You know, I'd been
Okay.
studying Spanish for 4
So-
or 5 years.
So that was your frustration, is that you felt you had started at a lower level?
Well, I was repeating stuff. I was
Mhm.
studying stuff that was kind of elementary
I see.
level, like reading Alice in
see.
Wonderland. You know, I did
Okay.
it in what we would call baby school or the primary school.
Mhm.
So I thought it was pretty easy. Of course, my SAT scores, which I took, I have no
Mhm.
recollection because I wasn't used to doing multiple choice exams.
Okay.
So that, I have no idea what I did on it. I
Okay.
remember doing it, but
Okay.
you know, examinations
So-
were a little
okay.
bit challenging.
All right.
because,
Okay, so
yeah.
let me talk now about when you got interested in your military career. I mean, because did you actually you went to college?
Absolutely. Well, I got interested in the military because for those years, a year and a half, I was in Evanston High School. There were quite a few kids, American kids, joining the military.
Mhm.
Plus, I was freezing to death
Mhm.
in Evanston, Illinois, and all I could think about is how can I get to someplace warm? And the big focus then for warmth was Florida.
Mhm.
And I found out that the boot camp was in Orlando, Florida. So coupled with a lot of kids from my school going and coming back and talking about boot camp, you know, how kind of crazy
So
it
it
was.
was at high school that you got interested in the military?
Yes, in the American high school.
Okay.
Yes, because
Okay.
quite a few of the kids were going, and there weren't a lot of women going either. And I love an adventure. I love to try new things. So when I heard about boot camp and heard it was in Orlando, Florida, that was a plus because at my age, you know, girls didn't necessarily leave home. You know, American have a
Mhm.
rule where when you turn 18, you leave. Well, in the Jamaican culture at the time, the girls didn't necessarily, there was no age that you leave home. And
Mhm.
for girls, unless probably you're going to get married, it wasn't
Mhm.
you don't just say you're going to leave home. So
Mhm.
even though I was 16 going on 17, there was no concept of I'm just going to up and leave because I'm in a foreign country.
Mhm.
So I was thinking, where could I go? And when I heard about boot camp, Orlando, Florida, it meant warmth. I'm like, okay.
Well, why the Navy? Why not the Air Force? Why not any other
I
branch?
don't remember. I should say I joined as an enlisted because I mentioned boot camp, which is
Mhm.
two different, you know, enlisted
Mhm.
ranks versus commissioning. So the enlisted influence was as a result of all the people in my high school.
Mhm.
I don't remember why I picked the Navy, to be honest
Mhm.
with you, but I did go to the Navy.
Mhm.
Maybe because Glenview Naval Air Station
Mhm.
was there when I went to the recruiting offices. The Navy recruiter got me first. I don't remember why the Navy, but I did pick the Navy.
Mhm.
I do remember though when I went to the office, the recruiter wanted me to go on active duty. And I remember there was a lot of racism. You would hear the stories in the military, and I thought, every day, no. So I said to him, no, I don't want to go every day. Petty Officer Parker, I remember his name. And I said, no, I don't want to go every day. I just want to go see. Because remember, I'm just trying to get out of the cold. That's really my primary objective. And he said, well, no, he didn't have anything. And I said, okay, well, I'll go back home. And then he said, okay.
What did that mean? You said active duty. I mean,
well, active duty every day. You'd be there every day as your full-time job. I just wanted to go to Orlando to boot camp to get out of the cold and come back home. So I said to him, that's what I wanted to do. But the goal of recruiting is really to get people into the service to work every day. So he wanted me on active duty. So when I refused, he enticed me with a reserve program. So I ended up joining. He offered me a reserve program for 6 years where I'd go to boot camp, go to training for a school, in other words, a trades in layman's language or civilian language. And then I'd work at a base for 2 months, and then I'd come home. And 1 week in a month, I'd go to the base and work in the training that I got at the school. And then 2 weeks of the year.
So what type of training did you get?
I actually went to a specific school. I went to the aviation storekeeper school.
Okay.
So I learned.
So what level does that bring you in as?
Well, I came in as a E1. So I went E1, E2. I did because I didn't have college then. Remember, I was in high school.
So, but what training did they give you? They just
so I went to boot camp. Regular boot camp training, you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
and then I went to the A school where they taught me how to be an aviation storekeeper. So basically,
is that stockroom?
Right. So
okay.
I'm gonna, how at
material handling kind of.
At the car dealership, the person who handles all the parts for the car.
Yeah.
I do the same thing for,
okay.
And there's a little bit more to it, but I work in that supply arena. Basically, in the aviation side of the house.
So, did you have a specialization as?
That was my specialization.
That was it.
Yeah, I was an aviation storekeeper.
Okay.
So I would be in main supply and working with, planes, air station, Glenview Air.
I mean, some people come in and then they go into the electronics
area.
Right. So
some people go as
there's
electronics technician,
fire control technicians,
exactly.
And that was your so. When did you actually, you went in as an enlisted person?
Right.
Okay. And then you, eventually you moved from being an enlisted to seeking officer.
Right. So what happened was, I told you I signed up for 6 years, right? So I went and I was enlisted, and while I was drilling, doing that, I was at Navy base one day, and a chief petty officer said to me, I have a job I'm going to recommend you for. And everybody knew I loved to travel. So he recommended me to go work in recruiting in Milwaukee for a year as a different kind of reservist, just to, so that was a separate contract. By then I graduated college too. So
and what did you get your college degree in?
Business and Spanish. I was a double major from Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago.
And you did that, how long did it take you to get through that?
Well, it took me a long time because I went to college right from high school, the Evanston Township High School in 72, but then I got ill and then I dropped out and just went to work. So for 6 years I worked and went to school and eventually flunked one of the courses, went on probation, so I quit working. I went to school full time and graduated in 1978. So
did you receive your commission before you graduated?
No, I graduated, then I got recommended for this job in recruiting in Milwaukee, and I did it for a year, and while I was doing that job, they needed black female officers in the Navy. So the commanding...
But you already had your degree?
Oh yes, I already had my bachelor's and stuff.
Okay.
So the commanding officer kept really just leaning on me, and I was like, no sir, because I was a little bit scared because of all the prejudice and the racism, and I didn't quite understand it, and I know I was not going to be I was not going to tolerate being mistreated, so I didn't want to get in trouble. But he just kept leaning on me, and the people in the command leaned on me, and my job at the time was, believe it or not, Navy Angel team. I was on this team called the Navy Angels, and basically it was a recruiting team, and they needed a woman of color to recruit enlisted to go into the high school and talk to the kids and talk to teachers and take them to boot camp. The teachers, they call them a educational orientation visit, and to do TV and radio talking about Navy opportunities on the enlisted side of the
Mhm.
house. So I did that for a year, and while I was doing that, the commanding officer and the officers, everybody kept saying, because I already have my degree, you should get a commission. We need, black females. And so I actually started looking, because before I joined the Navy, I was working in the hotel management, and that's what I was going to go working for a civilian job. But when I compared the salary, because I had those 6 years reserve time, to what I was going to be getting if I went civilian and didn't stay in the military, I was making a lot more money in the Navy.
What was your designation as an enlisted before you received your commission?
Well, in the enlisted rank, they don't call it designation per se. It's your rating. So I was an aviation storekeeper. When I got commission, I was what they call a fleet support officer, 1100 officer.
Is that a lieutenant?
No, it's just how should I put it? It's just the group or the.
You were an officer, but you didn't have how?
No, I was my rank and designator student. So my rank was ensign when I was commissioned. I was commissioned in ensign, which is the lowest officer rank in the Navy, Coast Guard, and did I miss anybody? The Marines and the Air Force they're second lieutenants. So we're the same as the Coast Guard. So the lowest rank was ensign. So I was commissioned in ensign. I went to Newport, Rhode Island for my commissioning training. My officer candidate school is what they call it. On the enlisted side, it's boot camp. On the officer side, it's officer candidate school. So I went to Newport, Rhode Island, graduated, and there's another story there. And got my commission, and then went to Bermuda for my first assignment.
Commander.
Yes,
please,
sir.
Please tell me. You have, before the break, we were talking about your commission as an ensign, and I want to see how did that progression go from there?
So I got commissioned as an ensign, went to my first assignment in Bermuda, which was fabulous. Jamaican in Bermuda, full-time job with the military. How fabulous was that? I was a public relations officer for the base.
Oh, okay.
And that was a 2-year assignment. From there, I went to Washington, D.C., because at the time, I had shipmates.
Now, when you left Washington, to go to Washington, D.C., were you still an ensign, or
Yes,
you?
I was still an ensign.
All right.
I may have been selected by then for JG, but had not what we say pinned it on yet, wasn't officially wearing it. And went to Washington, D.C. with another shipmate who said, if you want to make flag, got to go to D.C. So at the time, I had big aspirations. So we went to Washington, D.C. My initial assignment was in the housing section as a housing inspection team manager. So we traveled all over the United States and overseas inspecting. We're responsible for the quality of Navy housing for both enlisted and dependents and officer. So I traveled with the team for I think the first year, and then we got reorganized, and I went over in the policy section, housing policy. So I was responsible for crafting policy that governed Navy military housing worldwide for both officer and enlisted. From there, I got selected to go to the Naval Postgraduate School to do my master's degree in transportation.
What was it? Master's in?
Transportation management.
Okay.
Which was, in essence, trying to develop a subspecialty in the Navy, because you have like your primary job, so to speak, and you're allowed to develop at that time what they call subspecialty. So that was going to be my subspecialty area, which is kind of like logistics. For a simple way of putting it. So from the postgraduate school, I went to Army Logistics School, and from there, I ended up not going to my subspecialty tour, but instead went to what's called my department head tour. So I ended up at Naval Air Station Moffett Field, where I went in as the director of the Family Service Center, which was kind of like a director of a social service agency. I was responsible for the welfare of the entire population on the base, the families, the active duty officers. So I was responsible for programs for, I guess you could say, health and well-being. And then eventually I took over as the administrative officer. In fact, I held 2 department head positions at the time. Left from there and did a lateral to Treasure Island, because by then I'd met my husband and got married and did not want to leave the area. He's into computers, and his job was in Silicon Valley, which is where I live now. So I took a lateral to Treasure Island Naval Base. And while
And Treasure Island, that's in where's that located?
it's in the waters, in San Francisco waters. It's a little
Okay.
island out in
Alright.
the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And while I was there, I got the opportunity to go to command, which is every naval officer pretty much live to get command. And command means you're the person in charge of whatever, the unit, the base.
So this was your first command?
It was my first command.
And what was the?
I was commanding officer with what was then called a transient personnel unit, which was basically a command where I was responsible for processing people being put out, and also processing people going to different areas overseas. That's
Okay.
kind of a quick summation. So from
How many in that command, approximately?
gosh, it's been so many years. I would probably say on the average 150, 200. It was a very small command, and it's really at the what we call the kind of lieutenant commander, kind of a department head level command, as opposed to.
Had you been promoted?
Oh
from
yes,
that?
I missed that. By then, I was a lieutenant commander.
Okay.
Yeah, which is great to be
Okay.
in command. Command is command.
All right.
So to
But
be-
what's the grade after ensign? What were you?
So ensign, it's JG, then lieutenant.
JG is.
Yeah, lieutenant Julia grade. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Lieutenant, and then lieutenant commander, and then commander, and then captain. The equivalent in the Marine Corps and Army is second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, a lieutenant major,
Okay.
lieutenant colonel, colonel. And then
Okay.
it starts in the flag and
So
general
so
officers.
how long were you an ensign? How long were you?
Okay, so normal time period is for the Navy, and it varies by the services at the time, because I don't know what it is today, if it's still the same, but about 2 years as an ensign, about 2 years as a lieutenant. From lieutenant to lieutenant commander can be anywhere from about 4 to 5. I think in the Coast Guard it may be more, but I'm not sure. And then from commander to captain is probably about 5 or 6 years. But there's so much stuff goes into that, because not only the time, but it's also getting the right jobs to get you promoted, getting the right fitness sports to get promoted. So, but those are kind of average times, and it varies by service. Some of the other service, it's much longer. It's a matter of total manpower, what the needs of each services are at each pay grade. We call it a pay grade. So yeah, but those are the average times as I remember it. And that's a long time ago, because I'm in my 16th year of retirement. So I'm not sure that those time periods are still what it is today,
Wow.
2017.
Okay. Wow. I mean, yeah. So tell me about some of these challenges that you faced as being a female black officer in the Navy.
You don't have time for it. Well, I think, let's see, I think the number one challenge was females in the military, because it is it was, and it somewhat still is. There's now total integration of women. They had the combat exclusion, and I think we're at the point where women are serving in just about everything except for the Navy, not yet in submarines. But I know, for example, in the Army, they're now Rangers. They graduated, I think I saw on the TV, somebody, a first female. But back when I joined, even when I joined as an enlisted, it wasn't the thing to do to go in the military. And, we were kind of perceived in certain ways as females, which I won't repeat here. It wasn't necessarily good. And then when I got commissioned, they really needed, so again, the numbers were small. And then for black officers, it's small. And don't ask me the statistics today. I did look at them a couple of weeks ago, because I had to do a presentation, but I can't recall them off the top of my head. But the Navy in particularly, and even the Marines, some of the services, have been always challenged by having enough black female or black male officers. In my year group, or the period that by the time I got to lieutenant, the numbers were pretty huge. Of course, most of them are retired now, and the few that are left are the active duty, or probably flag officers eventually be retiring soon. And I don't want to say that they still have a problem, because I should probably quote some statistic, but one of the primary things we do is in NNOA, which we'll probably talk about, is try to help them to recruit for the sea services. So it was challenging. You were a female in a predominantly male environment, and for a long time we only could do certain jobs. Now it's wide open. I mean.
So when you give an order, did you have any people resist your orders?
Oh yeah. Even today I have people resist my orders.
Resist?
Yeah, you do. But the bottom line is, they know, we all raise our hands, take an oath of office. We swear to defend and we swear to follow. And so, you just get up there and you do your job and you do it to the best of your ability. And when you're challenged, you just deal with it. So when I was challenged, I just dealt with it. I had to go toe to toe.
So what, what's the consequences of someone not carrying out an order that you've given them?
Well,
Or how
for
would you
the
deal with it?
enlisted, it's kind of easy. Something, and most times people are gonna follow your orders. For the males, they don't really outright disobey.
I mean, they can put you on bread and water, can't they? I mean, I've heard of it being done.
Put it this way, you get in big enough trouble and end up in the brig, I think you end up on bread and water. But in terms of routine day to day, I mean, you may get to the point where you have to put somebody on report. Seldom with an officer you do that. With enlisted, you probably put them on report. And with an officer, if it gets that bad, there are channels, there are rules, there are policy to affect certain change, So you write them up, you write a complaint against them, there are things you can do if it ever gets that bad. It never got that bad with me.
I have to mention that I'm a Navy civilian.
Okay.
Okay.
So you
for
probably...
the record, but I also and my office happens to be right outside the Sergeant of Arms door. So I see some traffic going.
Yeah. Well, if people screw up, they're gonna get their hands slapped, and there are various degrees of hand slapping, so to speak. So. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So so is it? Would it be safe to say that your interest in the military came about in high school because there was a buzz about people joining the military, and
survival.
You were drawn to the warm weather.
And I also was drawn to the fact that I was going to be moving every 2 or 3 years, because I was one of those rolling stones. I get bored very easily. I like adventure. I like excitement. So. But
did you have any other aspirations?
Yes, I did.
In high school.
I absolutely did.
And what was that?
I was going to be an actress and a dancer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to get
into the arts.
We're going to get into
yes,
left
I did.
brain, right brain.
Dream deferred.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. So that career took you. How many years were you in the military?
27.
27 years.
I tell people I joined as a pup. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I joined I think at the minimum age. And in retrospect, I think it was one of the best decisions of my life, really. Okay. The longer I'm retired and I have time to think about it, based on my personality and what, turned me on, the military was perfect, because every 2-3 years I was someplace different. I was working for different people. We had a saying in the military that if you worked for a boss you didn't like, either he would leave or you'd leave. And that was wonderful. Other people are at a place for 20 and 30 years miserable. I'd be miserable for short periods of time, if there was such a thing, and then I'd move on. Yeah.
Wow. Now, tell me about the decorations that you have there.
Oh my God, this is so long
ago. Your citations.
I'll summarize them. They were for performance, they were for service in general. You get ribbons for performance and service. Yes.
Ever in combat?
No. When I joined, remember, women, well, you probably know, when I joined in 1973 and enlisted, women weren't allowed to go to combat. I don't remember the year the combat exclusion was lifted, and then it was a slow process to integrate women into all the jobs, and then even into combat. They're still, I think, trying to do that very well. So.
Were you ever deployed to combat zones? Areas?
No, I was not. I had a couple of shipmates who did go over there, and as I was I retired in 2000, and I was leaving, people were getting sent. I was at CENTCOM, trained up to fight the Iraq War. Iraq? Yes. Yes, yeah. Okay. But I moved, I transferred before, so no. I've not served aboard ship. All my assignments have been shore assignments,
shore duty.
And I have not been to war.
Okay. What was your actually retirement date? When did you indicate?
October 1st, 2000.
In 2000. Okay. And
as I was pregnant with my third child, or delivered my third child.
All right. Okay. So now I want to talk about, you know, at the top of the show, we indicated that you were the president of the National
Yes.
Naval
Yes,
Officers
yes, I'd be happy to talk about
Association.
that.
And you are the first female president of this institution. That is 44 years old?
Yes.
And you're the first
right,
female
yes,
black.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
tell
yes.
us about that role.
So let's start with NNOA and who they are. So NNOA has been around since about 1972, and it's basically was formed by a group of naval officers who saw the need to have an organization to support the sea services in recruiting, and have a group of officers where you could have camaraderie, where you could provide professional development for each other, and also be role models in the community. I became aware of NNOA when I was in Bermuda. Same friend who encouraged me to go to DC.
All right, what now I want to know what your officer ranking was at that time. You
I was an
aware.
ensign.
Okay. Did you
Ensign.
join as an ensign?
No, remember I went from enlisted?
No, but did you join the
Oh yeah, it's an officer organization.
Okay,
I-
so that's when you joined.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
As an-
no. I heard about it
Okay.
as an ensign because I was overseas. It's in Bermuda, and Bermuda did not have a chapter.
Okay.
So I had a friend who was the president of a chapter at Whiting Field, Commander Lisa Cheatham. So she would tell me what's going on, and she said, when you come back to the States, the first thing you have to do is join this organization. And because of who the organization was and what they would do, I was very interested, because remember now, Jamaican background, no military in the family, didn't know anything about military service or the Navy, right? So I joined when I got to Washington, D.C., 1982, I think it was. I joined them. I joined the D.C. chapter. We have the NNOA have chapters throughout the United States and overseas. We have Okinawa. And that's our only overseas one right now. And then the rest is throughout the U.S., Central region, Western region, Eastern region. And so I joined when I went to D.C. I was in the D.C. chapter. And there began what I credit a lot of my success to getting to this rank, to that organization. Because not knowing anything about the military, they provided me with mentorship. There were officers senior to me, both female and male, and they kind of took me along. And so whenever I had any issues, any questions, any kind of professional training, and we do an annual training, which they've been doing for the last 4 to 4 years, every year, where they gather, all the members come together and they provide professional career development training. And basically it's topics to help enhance your career, give you some life skills, because you know it is the military, and a lot of people coming in new, and you need to know how to navigate, so to speak. So I spent my entire naval career very active. You know, every time I move, I would join a chapter because of my background is predominantly what I was interested in, plus what they do. And over the years, even though I retired in 2000, I continued. I became their NRTC coordinator, which we talked about, where I took an interest in recruiting because when I retired, I was involved in some little direct sales job, and I would go into the houses in Oakland, California, and I'd meet so many bright students who wanted to go to college, but they had no money. Parents didn't save enough, didn't have scholarships. And I thought to myself, we have this scholarship where at the time when I first started doing it, you could go 2 years and drop out. And if you decide after 2 years you didn't want to serve in the Navy when you graduated, because you have to pay us back if we pay for the college tuition, then they move it to 1 year. And I thought that was a fabulous program. Plus, I thought the military was just a great place for you to get a college degree, and immediately after you get a college degree, you work in charge of people, in charge of things. So you get a job training. We're probably, back then, and I think still is one of the few companies or organization that you get 4 weeks vacation immediately once you join, and you get medical health. There's just lots of entitlements. So I just thought it was a good program, so I started doing that, supporting the organization in that particular role in 2000. So I kind of still remain engaged, even though I was retired. So last year, and then on the board, off the board, as I moved around in active duty, I was involved in various chapters.
So essentially, being with this is it NNOA?
Yes, and I know.
Pretty much nurtured your career.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's why
Mhm.
today that's why I've stayed active, because I feel like I have to give back, number
Mhm.
one. And then last year, the president then, Commander Will Watson, called me up and said, when he got elected, I phoned him and said, look, if you ever need any help, call me. I was hoping he didn't call me. He didn't call me for a whole year.
Mhm.
And then in his second year, he called and said, Denise, I need you to run for the regional Western VP. And I really was trying to somewhat disconnect, because I felt I was retired and I just needed to do something else.
Mhm.
But I ran and I was elected, and I did that for a year, which was great, kind of a orientation, because being retired, you kind of out of the loop, and the different young people today. And then last summer, he was leaving the office, and he and one of my mentors, Captain Donald Flowers, who mentored me from, and then JG is when I met him. He said, I think you should run for president. And I said, no, I don't want to do that, because I had other plans. But they both said, yeah, we think you could do it. You think and then I always felt I could, but at this point in my life, I'm much, much older, and I've been around a long time. I was looking forward to doing other things. But again, out of a commitment of, really appreciating what the organization did for me, and feeling a need to have the organization continue and do it for the ones coming behind me, I ran, and I was elected. And honestly, I wasn't even thinking I was the first female. It's amazing. I've been in the organization, and when you say first female, I say to myself, why didn't we have a female before? But it's just one of those things. And so it really didn't dawn on me when I was running, if I was elected, I'd be the first female. And I kind of like the first female,
Right.
I'd rather just be thought of as the president, but, so I am the first female.
Well, so, it's predominantly male. So if I were to go to an NNOA meeting, how many men would I say? What's the breakdown in men and women officers that would be there?
I don't think we have a statistic.
Is there an approximation?
I can't even get. When you could probably say how many Coast Guard, how many Marine Corps, Navy, which I don't have the numbers in my head because it's all three. But we've never focused on how many male versus female. I'd say the males are probably the majority, just because the numbers wise, and the overall numbers of the services. But there's a better mix than when I first started out, for sure, as a commissioned officer.
What's the size of the organization when you talk about those members?
Right, our membership is around almost 900 members,
Wow.
and it's much smaller than, because in the heyday of it, in like the 80s, when we had a lot more bases, because there are a lot of base closures, so we had many more chapters than we do now. Now we're down to about 14 chapters. 3 on the west, about 12 in the east, and about 4 in the central region.
So you've been in this role for how long now?
Since last July.
And how are you enjoying it? How are you?
I am hanging in.
Or are you enjoying it?
Well,
more a challenge than.
Well, I think one of my challenges, I think I've learned, and I would recommend, I think being retired the last 16 years, I somewhat disconnected from the general day-to-day operations of all the three services. So I had to quickly, get up to speed again. Even I have a Navy rep who was constantly correct me as to, because in my day I thought you could just say Admiral. You didn't have, you knew eventually if you look at them who was the rear and who was the vice, and upper lower.
Right.
But it seems over the years now you have to be very specific. So I'm very challenged to remember who is the rear, who is the vice. So little things like that, but you just pull out the paperwork. Okay. Thank God for internet and Google. What you don't remember, you don't know, you look it up, and
Commander. Now you're president of 2 organizations.
I know.
And
so
which one is the most difficult one to run? I want to know that.
I'm not answering that one. No. Put it this way: I've decided to step down from the Jamaican American Association, because I think with this new role in the NNOA, it's enough to keep me very busy, and I don't want to do a disservice to the other organization. Now, the Jamaican Association out of California, it's also been around a very long time. It's been around since 1960.
How long have you been the president then?
Oh gosh. I remember the consul's wife said I was going to be president for life. I believe I went back to California. I retired in 2000. So I can't be up there for 17 years.
You think?
I've been
Yes.
on and off. No, it can't be 17 years. That's ridiculous. No. I think I went maybe it's been about 5 or 6 years. Because you know how
Okay.
time goes by fast.
Okay.
But it's a much smaller organization.
How many members do you
Um,
have?
I would say we have maximum we had 100 members, and lately we've
That's a
been
good
averaging
size.
about 50. But
you-
we're not set up like and in a way it's
Mhm.
definitely this is a very small nonprofit organization
Right.
operating in Northern California, founded back in 1975 to basically help integrate Jamaicans in the Northern California community and expose Jamaican culture to Northern California. So it's very small, and we engage both there and with different projects in Jamaica. Over the years, we've had many, we celebrate Jamaican independence every year. We raise money for scholarships. We used to give regular scholarships to high school and teachers going to University of the West Indies, going to pay for high school tuition, fund different schools. We had medical, the typical
I remember you had a life-saving experience.
refresh my memory with that one.
Was it a young lady or a young
Oh
man
yes,
that had
yes,
a heart
yes,
operation, was it?
yes. And we
That was-
fundraise money to. This
Right.
just happened last year,
Right.
late last year. Yes. So we do things like that. We take on community projects both there and in Jamaica because our country needs help, and a lot of us are here and would love to be in Jamaica, but we left a long time ago. We're married here now. We have kids that are born in America. So whereas we all had plans to go back home, we're still here. We visit regularly. I
Yes.
visit regularly because the majority of my family is still there, with some spread in Canada and the Fort Lauderdale area. And personally, for me, there are times, when as you get older, you reflect. And while I would say, I've had a pretty good life here and I can't complain, I can't help but sometimes wonder if migration was the right thing, because I think about my grandmother.
Well, did you have a choice?
Well, that's the other thing too. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't, because my parents said, "Come." And I remember I mentioned to you as a female, "Where are you going? You're following your parents." You know what I mean? You're with them till you get married, kind of thing. But in reflection, because my mother is 85, all her sisters and brothers are still alive, which is 6 of them. 2 of them living in Canada. And my grandmother lived till she was 100. So many times, especially of late, I look and I go, gosh, I miss time with my family. So was it really worth, you know what I mean? Because you start to really value family. And so anyway, so a lot of Jamaicans here are here because we came to better our lives, not because we necessarily wanted to come, but we saw America as an opportunity to have a better life, whether it was your parents a better life for us, their children. And now that we're here and married and we have American kids, it's pretty hard to say you're going to uproot and go back for good. So many of us, we go back and we have property in Jamaica, or we live there part-time.
Split between
right.
the host country and the homeland.
Yeah, so but there's that sense of loyalty to want to give back to the country too, just like how I want to give back to and the majority of Jamaicans are pretty loyal no matter how many years they're here. And we have a lot of challenges in Jamaica right now. So the Diaspora, which they formed about 10 years ago, was a recognition by the government that there are Jamaicans living outside of Jamaica that could contribute a lot. So they finally started to look to us for our talent and skills. And as you know, I'm involved with the Crime Task Force, which is a resale force that was.
Let's talk about that. Well, let's talk about the fact that we met at a national Association of Jamaican and Supportive Organizations. That's where we met.
Which is another
organization that you are affiliated with. Can you tell us?
Well,
about
that organization's been around. Gosh, I remember the first president I met when I was in recruiting in Milwaukee back in 1978, Pat Shapinsky. So they're an umbrella organization of all the Caribbean or Jamaican organizations. And as a result, because we're the Jamaican organization in Northern California, we're under their umbrella. So I served briefly on the board as a representative, since I'm the president of the JNC. And that year we met was my first year that I served on the board, and we met at the conference in Montego Bay. And they do an annual conference. In fact, theirs is coming up July 14th, I think, through the 16th in the summer. But anyway, the bottom line is Jamaicans are still loyal. They could be here forever. They could be citizens. Everybody's trying to give back now, especially with the government, the present prime minister really putting attention and emphasis on the diaspora. I'm on the crime task force led by a gentleman in my area.
And that's the Jamaica Diaspora
Right.
Crime
Right.
and Prevention
Right. Task force.
Task
Right.
Force. So let's talk about the Jamaica Diaspora Crime and Prevention Task Force that you are working on.
So Captain Francis is the leader, and he just called up last summer and said, Denise, I heard you're military. I want you to join me on this task force. And I go, well, I'm not military police. He goes, it doesn't matter, you're military leadership. So, and he wanted me to contact lots of other military Jamaicans in the area, Northern California. So that's how we got started. So I started working with him to find people. And of course, because crime is such an issue in Jamaica right now, everybody is interested in the crime task force. So,
so what is the task force doing?
Basically, our goal is to try and resolve the crime situation in Jamaica, eliminate it.
Now,
decrease it.
The task force itself was established how long ago?
Just last summer.
Okay.
Last summer.
Now, some of the feedback or some of the comments have been that how can a crime and prevention task force in the United States or overseas address the crime problem in Jamaica? So how
well,
is
the first
that
thing Captain
question answered?
Yeah, the first thing Captain Francis and a small group. First, I should say, I am so impressed with the people in this task force. They are really highly qualified. They're people who are commissioner of police here, former commissioner of police, crime prevention, you name it. In terms of crime in the U.S., they're Jamaicans on it that have worked in it in the U.S. So they're taking skills and training that they've acquired in the United States to hopefully transfer there. So the first thing they did was they formed a small, what we would say, a fact-finding committee, and they went to Jamaica late summer, met with the minister, the prime minister, the minister of security, and various government officials to let them know how we wanted to help them. Because remember, I said the government formed the diaspora with the idea of leaning on the Jamaicans abroad with skills that they feel we can transfer back and help Jamaica. So it's exactly what's happening here. So we said to them, we're willing to try to help you to look at what's causing crime, how you're policing, in how you're training. And so they went out and they met with different members of the JDF, the Jamaica Defense Force, the police force, to look at how they're set up, how they're doing training, what kind of tools they have. I mean, the whole comprehensive look. And we have taken that information now, and now we're analyzing and looking at how we can use the skills on our task force to now respond to what their demands or needs might be in order to decrease crime in Jamaica.
Well, so I'll go back to my original inquiry. The perspective has been, well, what advantage do we in the diaspora have to address the crime problem in Jamaica versus those that are in Jamaica, that have the same knowledge and are much more aware of the crime that's occurring. So
well, from what I see happening, the way Captain Francis is doing, it's an exchange of skills, it's an exchange of ideas, it's an exchange of training. It's taken the experts that are here that have been successful in crime prevention in various cities through the United States, looking at what they're doing in Jamaica and seeing how we can improve on what they're doing. We're not going there to take over. We're going there to work with the folks that are, the chiefs of police there, the Jamaica Defense Force, and just help them round out their skill set, maybe bring some innovation in terms of what, we have been doing here that have been successful in fighting crime in the United States, sharing it with them, and hopefully by sharing and teaching and constant collaboration, we can come up with what you should say, solutions to the problem that over the short term and the long term will help decrease the crime.
Well, isn't some of that solution going to mean money and funding? And what about the added significance of the fact that here in the diaspora, in the U.S. particularly, you have the U.S. International USAID. Okay,
Well,
you can access
right,
funding.
right.
You know,
And I know
which
that
is-
there are members of the force that are looking at the different sources of funding that might be available from here that we could transfer there. But right now, I can tell you that the people who are on it are actually using their own personal funds. They're funding their travel to Jamaica. Captain Francis is getting ready
Sure.
to go to England
Right.
at the end of this month, liaison with the group there. And so, again, it goes back to what I said about the loyalty of the Jamaicans here wanting to see our country better, wanting to decrease crime in Jamaica, so it's better for everybody, those living there and us having to go there. So people the people on the force are right now using their own funds and resources
Sure,
to do
sure.
what needs to be done.
Yeah, but to put a dent or to address adequately the crime
Right.
situation, that it's going to take funding.
Yes,
It's
and
gonna
we're
take
working
money.
with the Jamaican government
Right.
now. We're working with the Jamaica
It's
Defense
gonna take
Force. We're working
resources,
with the
right.
police force. Yeah,
Mhm.
so they have resources as part of their budget,
Mhm.
towards fighting crime. I guess you could say we're probably going to start more with the training and the
Mhm.
sharing of information. And when it comes to funding, it definitely has to come from local government. If we can tap into resources, because we're told that there are resources here that have been identified that could be used in an
Mhm.
overseas, a foreign environment
Mhm.
in terms of supporting what we're doing in Jamaica. We haven't applied yet, as far as I know. We've heard that
Well,
there's
so
that
that's the
funding is
question.
available.
That's the
So
question.
we're gonna research it,
Okay.
because of course if there's money, if we can get aid from the United States, why would we not ask?
Mhm.
Because we know the economic situation in Jamaica.
Right.
That's an issue,
Mhm.
funding. So if there's a source, whether here or some other country, England, because the representatives on the task force are not only from the U.S., they're
Mhm.
U.S., England, and Canada.
Right.
Because it's open to any Jamaican who wants to work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now.
So we just started. So
Mhm. Okay.
all I can say at this point is you have a dedicated, skilled set of Jamaicans who are determined that they're going to try and make a difference when it comes to crime prevention and crime elimination in Jamaica.
Okay, that's fair enough. Wanted to talk to you further about. I know we made mention of this previously, that you had other aspirations. I call it the
yes.
left. Call it the left brain, right brain syndrome.
Yes.
You want to talk about
Yes.
your
Well,
desire
I
for the arts?
always wanted to dance and be an actor. And in high school, I
Mhm.
did a lot of acting in Jamaica, as a
Mhm.
matter of fact. But for dance, that was a little bit elusive because it took money, which I didn't
Mhm.
have. So believe it or not, and some people in your audience might remember, there was a dance school in Crossroads in Jamaica called
Mhm.
Silver Slipper.
Mhm.
And remember I told you my primary school was in Crossroads. So I used to go there after school and stand outside, and as they're doing the ballet moves,
Mhm.
I'd imitate. So that's kind of how I started learning
Mhm.
to dance. And then once I came to high school,
Mhm.
I did that year. I was actually in troupe, a
Mhm.
high school dance troupe, so I performed. And then in college, a couple years at college, I danced. But then once I got in the military and started moving up as the officer ranks, there wasn't really room for a lot of dance. I did
Mhm.
when I was in Bermuda. I did
Mhm.
participate in Bermuda's equivalent Broadway. I was in
Mhm.
a major production there for the 2 years. I was
Mhm.
in theater there. And then when I got to DC, I danced in troupe in another community cultural group. So I've been dancing all along, but the bottom line is one of the reasons why I chose a career over in around 19, I came 16, so about 72, 73, I started modeling. So I had a little experience in Chicago with that industry. And it was extremely competitive. I didn't have the right height because back then it was blonde, 5'6", blue-eyed, blonde hair. And so I could see where it was going to be challenging. I remember Beverly Johnson, who she is. She
The
started,
model, right?
she
Yeah.
started modeling about the same time. She used to make rounds. We
Mhm.
would be making rounds. I would see her. I don't know
Oh,
her, but
okay.
I know of her
Mhm.
because we saw her at
Mhm.
the same time. But it was very competitive, and I didn't have the height. And it boiled down to, did I want to eat or did I want to go out to Hollywood and sleep in a car? And it was I feel it's easier now to break in the industry than it was back in 1973, the 70s and the 80s. So I just decided to pursue a career where I know I could get a paycheck to pay my rent and, you know, build, because, you know, I came from Jamaica for a better life. I didn't want to end up in the poorhouse, so to speak. So it was a decision I made, and I always said that, you know, as long as you're breathing, you can always go back to acting. And Hollywood would always.
And you're doing that now. Let's talk about what you're doing now.
I am. I do have an agent, and I started by just going doing commercials. I haven't done any theater because it involves studying lines, and memory is very challenging. Plus the time to rehearse, because I still have a 16-year-old son who wasn't 16 when I retired in 2000. He was born in 2000, so he's a baby. So I went back, and I'm doing commercials, and I've done some commercials. I have some
That's great.
out there. I have an
You know,
agent, which
that's
is
great.
good. That's
Super.
usually the first challenge. And I'm taking classes. I go to acting class.
Good.
I took a break because once I got elected president, it seems like all I could do is ending away right now. So I'm not taking classes for the first time in about 3 years right now. But I do plan to be nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, good.
For
Good,
some
good.
dramatic role,
Great.
you know, Jennifer
Okay.
Hudson and
All
my
right.
old days, like the rest
Okay.
of them. One day before I die.
Well, do you know we can have that happen for you. You know, recently on the Jamaica Diaspora show we had the Candyman, Tony Todd came on.
Really?
You know, he's from Hartford, Connecticut.
Is that right?
And he wants to come back and he wants to do some movies and some stage work. So maybe we can get you to.
Hey, tell him when
come
he's
in
ready for the
there.
audition. You know, but I do some cultural stuff in Northern California. Usually for the independence dance, you know, choreograph. You know, I had a dance troupe called Kuya Dance Troupe for a while in Northern California. And we have done some plays, you know, for our independence celebration. So,
And you go back to Jamaica also? You want to talk about that?
Absolutely.
I'm
I'm in Jamaica all the time. I've been going back for the last 6 years. I go and do a dance program at the Manley Performing Arts School there. They have a wonderful adult summer dance
and I
program.
didn't mention that we are in New York now. So what did you do since you've been in New York?
Yeah, I frequent Alvin Ailey.
Okay.
I love the Alvin. I wish I could transplant it to San Jose. They have such wonderful teachers. So today I just did Zumba, but usually I do West African. And then I follow it with Zumba, and then I do a hip hop in the afternoon.
Well, you know, I tell you, the viewers can certainly see that you have a wide interest. You have a wide background.
Yeah.
You've gone from Jamaica to this military life to leading organizations, social organizations, and business organizations, and military organizations. You've had a fantastic career. You know, and it's not over. You're still.
I don't know. 65 is around the corner. I think I'll take my Social Security and go home.
So there's more in the sights for Commander McCallacreary, and certainly it's been a great pleasure for me to have you on the show. It's been a wonderful conversation that I've been having, and look forward to talking to you again. Also, you know, we do have our paths will cross most definitely with your involvement with the Crime and Prevention Task Force, and also hopefully again with Najaso.
Right.
But it's been great talking to you. Looking forward to working with you further on the task force and as we move forward in Najaso's evolution.
Well, I want to thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I just do one last plug for the Navy ROTC scholarship. If you're looking for 4 years of paid education, you have to give us back some service.
Okay.
Consider the Navy ROTC.
Okay, you can point it right there.
Point it right there. If you want 4 years of scholarship paid for, you do have to pay us back about 6 years. Consider the Naval ROTC scholarship. All the services have a scholarship, but I am selling Navy today, so therefore.
Okay.
Yeah, and call me. That's another thing.
Right.
Anybody want to join the Navy, whether it's the enlisted ranks or the officer ranks, I'll be glad to talk to them about what it means to join the military in general,
Okay.
which are have lots of great opportunities. I know we go to war. We can't forget that because that's our primary mission. But certainly, there are lots of opportunities for everybody.
And we can put something up on the screen for you.
Sure.
So,
Sure. It'd be
great.
great. Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.